I'm recording now, so how's it going, everybody? Yeah, I had a few things. Actually, it's nice that I have Brian on. Brian, there's a pull request that I have for you on the common, on that metric that you put together.
UG Common?
Right.
He's grabbing it. Nope.
All I did was I had to rearrange some of your.
Oh, you can. It's free. He's grabbing his note.
Go ahead. Keep talking. I'm here.
Wait, I just had to change the header order.
Okay. Yeah, I'll look at it, but I'm sure it'll be fine.
No content, just header order.
Okay.
Sean, I have a couple pull requests in for you under risk, I think.
Okay.
And again, all of this is just aligning the headers.
Sure.
And so just remember we talked about this last time. It's like some naming of some headers, and that's all. No content changes.
Okay. And this is all, we're done with this on the listening period or whatever is done on the 25th of July?
Kevin, is that right?
I'm sorry, you broke.
The review period is over the 25th of July?
I believe the review period goes. Let me double check on the website real quick.
I don't know if the issue is Kevin's Wi-Fi or mine.
It's Kevin's.
I was going to blame Kevin, but I didn't want to.
It is Kevin's.
It's definitely mine.
How about this, Sean? Nonetheless, it's like this week. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's this week sometime.
Yeah. So
yeah.
Either way, just take care of it. If you,
yeah, honestly, no, I'll take care of it today. I was just thinking of other to-dos that I might have.
Okay.
And how long I had for them.
Okay. So good for me. Let's see. I think any other things on metrics as those are cleared up? Okay. No. Good. All right. So my other thing is I think this is an update for everybody. I think CHAOSS.Con is going just fine. I actually think the rooms are considerably bigger than the number they capped us at. So I think the rooms actually hold like 200 people. So I think I've been kind of encouraging some people just to walk up on the day of.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, I mean,
I know I will be.
Well, you're a speaker. I think you automatically get slotted in somewhere.
Yeah. But by the way, that's the first week of classes for us, so I'm actually having a little bit of trouble getting undergrads to be able to come.
Oh, okay.
I'm still working on it. I haven't given up, but I'm waiting for some answers. But there's a little resistance for reasons that I totally get. It's been the second week of classes the last several years, but this year it's the first week.
Okay. Well, if you could just issue the comment period closes tomorrow.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'll get those in today.
And then, okay, yeah, that's fine, Sean. On the student, if you have to run both Augur sessions, that's not a big deal.
No, I should be able to get a student. I'm running, there's a little bit of resistance that I didn't anticipate.
Okay. If you are presenting.
I don't want to do it, just that they're afraid of missing a big part of the first week of class.
Yeah, no, I hear you. If you are presenting, can you go and just take a peek at the schedule?
I have looked at it, yep.
Just to make sure that your bio is what you want.
Oh, okay, yeah.
You know, those kind of things, because we can, hey, Georg, we can go ahead and change those if they need to change or if there's something missing.
I'll look at it, check my bio.
And I think actually, Ray, you're presenting too, so if you could do that. Brian, are you presenting? I forget.
Yeah.
You are. So Brian, do that too. Andy.
I learned last night that Brian's written a book on Plato.
Really?
Yeah.
The person or the?
The person. That's the first thing I asked
I
him.
know. It's like whoever I'm addressing that to, they always bring up the old mainframe, whatever, and I'm like, no.
No.
I was actually thinking of the child's toy.
Oh,
Play-Doh.
ooh, yeah.
Ooh, yeah.
Very good. No, it's the guy in the toga. Hello.
All right. So if AI for everyone, check your bio and all that kind of stuff. Valerio's on. Hi, Valerio.
Hi, do you hear me?
Yeah, hear you just fine. Thanks for coming.
Hello.
All right, so those are my big things. Honestly, my time has mostly just been spent trying to make sure the metrics are consistent. So I know that we had an issue. Yeah, I'll post this for everybody here too. These are the minutes. Oh, thanks, Georg. I know that there was a discussion that's been going on around the social media and use of Twitter. So, and that John has been putting together a document, and Georg provided some feedback over the week. Does anybody want to talk about this a little bit? Oh, John's on.
Sure, is that the
Yeah, sorry, just a little late.
I had just started the social media discussion.
Yeah, so my intent there is just to take the doc with the comments everybody made and just turn that into an operational document.
Okay.
I hope to have that done today, but I don't. So possibly by next week.
I think the general thing that came out of it is we have a single channel, at least for Twitter, which is Chaos Project or Chaos Proj.
Yep, and that folks can ask to. So I guess what I'll need to add to that doc is who has access to the account, who has the permissions to use it to tweet, and then kind of outline, you know, hey, if I'm somebody working in a working group and I don't have access to that, how do I get something tweeted out?
Yep.
That's basically it. I mean, it's probably only a couple of slides.
Yep. No, that's totally cool. I know you had expressed interest. Did you ever get that fixed with Georg?
I still don't. All of my software prompts me for the username and password for Chaos Proj, so I'm not sure what Georg's doing that doesn't require that.
So I'm using TweetDeck, and according to how I understand TweetDeck is I give access to your regular Twitter account. You log in with your normal Twitter account to TweetDeck, and then you have access to the Chaos project from TweetDeck.
Right. That's
Okay.
how it works.
All right, and I just haven't figured out TweetDeck yet.
Yeah, and there's no mobile client for TweetDeck because why would there be?
Ooh, boo, boo.
Yeah, it's desktop only.
So then, Georg, at that point, it would be you and Sean and Jesus
Correct.
that have access. So I think maybe the other thought
I have access as well, however, I don't use it.
Okay. Okay, so it's probably just time to
Yes,
identify
all right. I was invited to the Chaos team,
Yep, there you
and
are.
now I'm on it.
So when you tweet, you'll have a choice between that or Chaos, and you just make sure
Okay.
you do the right one, and then you
All
hit
right.
that, go, and then you can schedule
Okay, yeah, all right.
Yeah.
Cool.
each cake. But
Done.
no mobile client.
So who has access? It's Georg, Sean, Kevin,
Jesus.
Jesus. Okay. Cool.
And there's no mobile, which is a giant pain because that's what everybody tweets from.
Right.
All right.
All right. Looks like I'm in though on the
Okay.
TweetDeck, and I'll just have to
Is there
figure it
anything in our code of conduct that specifically Is
I
there
don't
anything
know.
in the code of conduct that specifically speaks to social media?
I don't know.
I don't recall that.
Well, what kind of?
Specifically, I'm talking about how these accounts are moderated.
No, we do not have anything with that regard in the code of conduct.
Yeah, one of my plans in the operations guide was to link to the existing code of conduct to ensure that anybody who's requesting a tweet complies with the code of conduct. I don't know if there needs to be more specific information in there about social media posting.
Are there any examples of codes of conduct?
Not just posting, but also how they're moderated.
All right, I don't know.
What do you mean how they're moderated? A code of conduct. A code of conduct, if you do one, should apply to output content.
Right. In any channel.
Right.
Yeah, I think anything specific on social media, it seems like too much detail for code of conduct, right? I mean, code of conduct should be more broad in terms of like people's behavior, right?
Yeah, if you want to cover it, just add a line to the existing code of conduct and say this applies to events and blah, 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 and social media, you know, any outreach.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that's fine. Yeah, but you know how things should be moderated and what can or cannot be posted. That's probably a separate document if we need to create
That's a
one.
process.
Yeah.
I can include an outline of that in the operations that guide. That's fine.
Yeah.
I'm sure that I can find one online to model off of.
Don't be a jerk. That's not code of conduct. All right.
Yeah, but that can be construed very narrowly or very broadly.
Not where I'm from, but okay. I mean, yeah, just
I'll just do some bullet points. It'll be all right.
Actually, our current code of conduct, put it in here. It has this statement. I think that was to your point, Ray, that it, you know. Oops.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think we have it covered in
Yep.
current code of conduct because it mentions social media account. So
Yeah.
cool. You're good.
whoever wrote it, well done.
Yeah, I might go in and extract just some bullet point behaviors from that to put in the operations guide to remind people.
Yep.
But I'll take a look at that and then link to it in the ops guide.
Okay. Okay, cool.
Yeah, the code of conduct we have is a true open source effort. We just forked it from somewhere.
And then did a find and replace for anything that.
Exactly.
Okay. All right, cool. The other thing that John, thank you so much. Was there any other comments on social media strategy? So the other thing that John had brought up was really this idea of trying to localize or suggest metrics for people in different roles. So bring together the different roles that people play in the open source space and the metrics that might be important in those roles. Did I summarize that approximately correctly?
Yeah, I think the lens that I was approaching it through was with all these different roles, what questions might they try to answer with the metrics? Because I don't feel like getting super deep down into the actual granular metrics.
Okay.
I'd like to understand, kind of think about what kind of questions those other roles might want to answer with the data.
Okay, and actually that approach fits well with our goal question metric approach that we use in CHAOSS. So then if you're hitting at the question spot, then maybe a variety of different metrics might help answer that question, whatever those might be.
Yeah, and I think Georg had an interesting comment too, which was about the express, I guess, a version of the CHAOSS project to make any value judgments using the metrics.
Yep.
And that those value judgments should be, implemented by the folks who want to use the metrics. Yep. And certainly a lot of the questions I'm asking are that I think that the different roles would be asking are certainly value judgments. So I want to try and keep those, expressly separate from mucking up your project.
Okay.
Yeah, the point where I made that comment was on a diversity score for projects.
Yeah. And I think that comment's applicable in a number of different places. I was asking questions like that. And they are questions I think that some of these roles are going to want to answer. But to your point, we can say, hey, great, you want to answer it? You can use the data however you want. But you all as a project don't want to be in that position. I think that's a wise choice.
Okay.
So,
So the idea that I had, and Sean, I know you already saw that, is to maybe publish it as a blog post, as a draft, because I don't know right now how we would integrate it in our current structure, but it's a really nice way to show people how they can approach the metrics. It's like a new guide to metrics. If you fall into this category, here are the things you might be curious about, and here are the answers CHAOSS metrics can provide.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I spent a bunch of time this weekend trying to reformat that document into a blog post, kind of summarizing, how I came to find your project and, just my own lens on it, since it was, from a blog post standpoint. And I reached out to the folks at opensource.org, so that's going. I'm probably going to send a draft over today or tonight. I don't know if anybody wants to review it. It's from my personal standpoint of view. It's not as a representative of the project or anything like that.
John, are you going to be in San Diego?
Yes, I am.
Maybe, are you going to be at CHAOSS.Con?
I'm specifically coming for CHAOSS.Con and nothing else.
Okay, so I'll take that as a yes.
Yeah.
Maybe another idea would be to run it as a birds of a feather session too. This document. So we're going to have time in the day for just kind of brief 5-minute birds of a feather talk.
Okay.
And might be worth just standing up and kind of talking about what this is and maybe what some of the structure looks like.
You're thinking about the lightning talks, the 5-minute lightning talks?
Oh yeah. Did I say birds of a feather? I meant lightning.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yep.
Perfect.
Talks.
Sure. I have time to prepare for that. That's fine. So just, let me know if there's a 5-minute slot you want.
I think they're 5 minutes. So, I mean, they're it's like one slide. Like, hi, here's the general structure of what we're looking at. I can do it too, but I thought I'd give you.
Yeah, and I'm definitely open to feedback on the blog post thing. I just didn't feel like circulating it via the mailing list because it's my own viewpoint.
Well, I'm happy to take a look at that.
Okay.
You can ping me on that one. Are you just going to write it in a Google Doc first?
Yeah.
Just assign me something and then I'll see it.
I'm also happy to give feedback.
Okay. Yeah, I see a hand up from Andy too. Totally cool. I'll do that.
Okay. Well, thanks for doing that. This does kind of raise another question then for me. And this was coming up in the D&I sessions the last couple weeks, is one of the things that I'd really like to do, and I think it's on our target for this year, is to try to identify pilot projects. I actually have this written in the weekly newsletter for this week, but how can we go about really trying to work with projects to understand how these goals, questions, and metrics live in the world, right? So I know that there's a lot of super smart people contributing to all of this conversation. And I think the conversation around goal question metrics are very valid and well-formed and all that kind of stuff, that they're not just kind of created out of thin air. But I'd really like to see some of these, or create some sort of feedback process by which we can understand these things in practice. Does that make sense? You know, like, so we're saying that a particular, say, a community manager might want to answer these questions in the case of what John is working on. So let's go try this in practice and see what this actually looks like. How can we do that? Kind of like the way that OpenStack had done some of the work on the gender report years back. Anybody have thoughts on this?
I mean, some of what we're doing with defining the metrics is it's at a granular level, and we're creating consistency that didn't exist before.
Yep.
I think when it comes to consumption, it's the packaging of a bunch of these tinier pieces of information that is actually what people want to consume.
Okay.
And so giving folks a way to consume a package or a set of a bunch of these metrics that they want to collect together is part of it.
Can you give me an example, like what you're talking about?
So for example, in Augur now, we're starting to collect histories of the numbers of forks, stars, clones, watchers on a repository. And over time, as the longer we collect for a set of repositories, the more history that we have. And people want histories of these things kind of returned as data collectively. So I don't want to just see a page or a graph that shows me the stars. I want to see something that shows me everything or gives me the data for all of those things together.
Yep.
And we would just, in the CHAOSS metrics, we're defining them discretely. But on the consumption side, they're consumed as a collection. And so it might be helpful to start to think about collections of metrics that people are interested in. So last year at CHAOSS.Con, there was a discussion, we're agnostic, but people really want dashboards. They really want, red, yellow, green, or red, yellow, green. So what are the collections of metrics that you might be able to parameterize and generate colors from in your consumption of them that might go together? So there's a lot of information around activities of different kinds that could be consumed on that kind of aggregate level.
So let me ask you a question. So what would, right now we have actions in the sense of the working groups with the focus areas, but then we have kind of a different form of collections that's taking form, which is the role that people might play. You know what I mean? So like in the case of a project manager, the collection might be, one from evolution, one from risk, one from, and that might be the collection. It might be a spanning collection. So when you're talking collections, do you have a sense of what you're talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how you would collect them?
I mean, like the one example is actually an example that someone asked for.
Okay.
Other examples are, I mean, we're defining the different properties related, or the different metrics associated with issue tracking and commits separately. I think there is an interest in having, sort of a way to look at those things collectively, the number of issues versus the number of commits versus pull requests when that's available. I think people are interested in just looking at the overall activity dynamics around a project. And I think, another example would be comments on each of those things.
What's the name of a collection? Like I'm trying to get.
Sure. One might be sort of there's different ways to collect them. So you could do activity around code, and that would bring together pull requests and commits.
Okay.
And then you might have a separate collection that is talk around code. So those might be the comments around pull requests and commits.
Okay.
And then you might have just sort of talk metrics, which might look at issues and the conversational volume and content around issues. Or you might be interested in all conversations. How much talk is happening versus how much code is happening.
So how would this be different than just making a focus area? Because like there is the code development focus area in evolution.
So the focus areas, my experience in them is that we're approaching them as, okay, how do we produce these metrics? How do we organize our thinking about the metrics?
Yeah.
So we're producing definitions and producing sets of things that we regard as related to the same kind of thing.
Yep.
And so what's different is I think people are wanting to consume pieces of these metrics that we've defined in different focus areas.
Okay.
As a set that's sort of orthogonal to some of the focus areas.
Okay. So do you think CHAOSS would put together what these collections might be? Or would we say that here's how we recommend that you create collections? You know what I mean?
I don't know that we need to create recommendations. I think I think if we have examples.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm looking at Brian because
This gets into the whole use case thing, and I've been historically kind of resistant to doing that. In that, I think we're built again. The metaphor is we're building Lego blocks here.
Mm-hmm.
We can give people guidance on like how to do these things. Like here's how you would, here's one way of setting these up, but it's not the way of setting these up. We get into tricky ground here when we decide to do it. But by the same token, I mean, our software implementations are going to do this anyway, because at some point when they start codifying these things literally, it's almost like they're building these collections already, right? Because there won't be multiple ways of getting to certain metrics in software. You're going to have to pick and choose some paths.
So
do we have, sorry, I was just going to ask a quick question. Do we have organizations that are running large, or even medium-sized implementations of CHAOSS yet? Because I'd love to. You're
about to once I get done with this meeting.
I mean, it would seem to be a natural thing to be like, hey, if you have somebody who's actually going to talk about this and implement the software, it would be great to get them as a contributor to, like, let's help them build dashboards. They can be like, hey, these are the ones that we implemented, and you're welcome to clone these, whatever.
So I can share from Bitergia perspective that we are using the Grimoire software, obviously, which implements many of the metrics that we have. And with regards to the collections, I was at CHAOSS.Con last week, and when we talk to people, they do ask, okay, so what are the collections of metrics that solve specific problems? I get that asked all the time. And so our approach at Bitergia was to create panels that pull together the different metrics depending on the different use cases. And I posted a blog post in the chat that we published earlier this year. It's not the final solution, like Brian said. There are so many different cases to consider, and when we do implement it for customers, they do have special needs. So having these defined sets of metrics is good to pull people in, but then once they actually want to use them, there has to be customization.
Okay, so I just took a few notes here.
Well, I also, I've got a point of view to add to this discussion. When we think about sort of packaging up sets of metrics, it'd be useful to think about the profile of the person that we're focusing on. And, there's going to be just generally like a newbie and an experienced person. And for a newbie, the less complexity, the better. And I think it would be useful to have something that is really super easily understandable to a newbie, and that might be, we look at the vast, collection of possible metrics, and we figure out, what are like 2 or 3 metrics that, we could put up like a leaderboard or a score sheet or something like that, and let that be an entry point into the world of CHAOSS. And then for the experienced person, the cookbooks and, the sort of flexibility and the analytical power would be like the second phase.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I wrote down 3 things. I'll put it in the chat here, listening to folks talk. So I had heard Georg say that he was asked about collections based on problems. That's what you actually used the word problems. I think there's this discussion that is with respect to the document John is working on, collections potentially based on roles of people. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm totally misreading this. maybe I'm misinterpreting this. And then the last is what Andy had just brought up, would collections based on experience.
I don't think those are mutually exclusive. I think those are probably all inputs to what a collection is.
Okay.
Right. Like if you wanted to define archetypical collections, then I think that's a good classification scheme.
Uh-huh.
You know, we come with a list of problems and roles and experience levels, and suggest collections that you might be interested in.
So this would be you're a brand new community manager that's trying to solve the problem of recruiting more members. That would be all three of those, right? Brand new community manager trying to increase participation.
Yep.
Okay.
But I would assume that would be like a wizard-based front end that we'd have to build, right? I mean, like the first time you log into this thing, let's walk you through all this stuff. There's a whole, if we decided we wanted to do that, let me know. I'll start working on some user journeys.
Yeah, because I'm a lawyer who.
Lawyer. Sure. It's a great thing, but it's a thing.
Yeah, the history of wizards and user experience is not overwhelmingly positive.
Well, so okay, let's modernize it into a SaaS onboarding, right?
Microsoft.
Let's resurrect Clippy. Let's go.
Yeah. It looks like you're interested in open source.
Yeah. Oh, that's hilarious.
But you're getting a good point buried in the lines there. Can you say it again, John?
What's that?
There was one thing you said in between that I thought was important.
Oh, I don't know. I was saying it's a good idea to have some kind of dynamic GUI that does an onboarding experience for young people, but it's a
Right.
product, and
Right.
If the project decided that was something we all wanted to build, then we could put it on the roadmap and start doing some user journey discovery. But that's a pretty large effort.
Yeah.
It is, and one of my concerns about use cases in general in this area is that we're always one use case away from not having full coverage. Like there's just a million different combinations of things, and that we just there's no wizard that could cover this ever.
Yeah.
Not really. Would. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead, Sean.
When I think of sets, or collections, I'm really thinking about sort of things to help people get started instead of having to call through each of the working groups and find all the pieces that they're looking for. Like, we have enough people with some experience that we could have some reference collections that people might consider starting with.
Okay.
Yes, that resonates.
Maybe more of a getting started guide is.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of this relies on knowing what people want too. So like, can people hear me real quick?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, just making sure. I wanted to also urge that I think we should lean as much of this as we can, this development process, on the discretion of the community, because I just don't want to define in-house what people want and say this is what you want pointed at them, if that makes any sense.
Yes, it does.
And we're not, and I think that's where the idea of reference collections comes in. It's like, some people have asked for this kind of stuff grouped together when they're consuming metrics. It doesn't have to be a consensus. It could be just like an infinitely growing set of things that has some kind of structure to it.
Right. And adding on to that, I certainly could see a situation where we seed such a collection with some reference examples and then just encourage community members to go in there and add their own. It'll be like analogous to Thingiverse, where you go and get all those patterns for 3D printing, right? And everybody just throws them in there and to share. So somebody will come up with, well, this was a cool thing I did, and they'll set up a metrics, collection pattern, whatever we call it, and people can just, use it or lose it, kind of thing. So
Well,
that would be an active, and that might be just an active venue for community members instead of being like, oh, you don't have to build software. You just have to tell us how you're using this for yourself and share with other people.
Yeah, and going back to CHAOSS.Con, I feel like that would be a good lightning talk too, because the risk one was very valuable to developing risk metrics. Asking people like, what kind of ways would you collect metrics together that are valuable to you, that kind of thing.
Okay, so
and in Elk, you can just export your dashboards as JSON, right?
In some format. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I've transferred them between different Elk clusters. And it would probably be worth doing some brief session on like, hey, you know, if you guys create a dashboard you like and you want to share it, here's where you export it and put it somewhere on GitHub so other people can use it. Because Elk is, yeah, not intuitive to a lot of people.
yeah, but I mean, if it exports to JSON, that would be
I think it does. I could be wrong. I want to go back and talk to one of my DevOps guys this morning. I thought that we were doing that. Maybe we were doing it in Grafana.
But if it's kind of like a push button export to share a dashboard,
I don't know if it's push button. I'll take a look.
Okay.
So what we do have as part of the CHAOSS project is the CGILD's panels collection or dashboard collection, which are exports from Kibana.
Okay, there you go.
There is a whole collection of panels already pre-configured that anyone who wants to start playing with metrics can start. But again, and this is what Brian has said and everyone else, it's a starting point.
Where are they?
Everyone in CGILDs. So I post the link in the chat.
Oh, okay, thanks.
That's the repository. Sorry, there's a website that is not the most pretty because interest seems to have been low, but if this is the that CHAOSS is getting to a point where now we have metrics and we can actually start sharing this, then I think we can get this cleaned up and prettified.
Okay. Thanks for sharing those. I had 2
comments. Are collections always connected to a dashboard then? Is that what we're thinking?
I think a dashboard is a natural way of combining them.
I mean, it could be an API.
In my mind, I think dashboards are certainly one way. I think just enumerating a set of data that people can consume some other way is you know, you could represent the collection. I mean, I think the abstract representation of the collection is here's a set of CHAOSS metrics I put together, and then a collection implementation might be a dashboard or an API.
Mm-hmm.
I think, you know, a dashboard can be both helpful, like a visual representation
between a composite metric collection.
Yeah, it can also be constraining because you're deciding for people how to represent their data, and if it may not represent how people are actually consuming it, right? They may want to see the data in a different way. So,
and that is where the next step comes in. We only provide these collections as a starting point, and then they customize it as they learn what they actually need.
Okay, so there's a difference between a composite and a collection.
Yeah. Yes. So I had one comment. One is perhaps we could have collections that are based on companies. So we would say these are the collections that, and I'll just pick the big internet companies or big open source companies. Like these are the collections that Red Hat uses. And these are the problems they're trying to solve. These are the people that look at these collections. And this is what Red Hat does. And these are the collections from Microsoft. These are the problems they're trying to solve. These are the people who look at, I mean, that would be another way of kind of putting this out. These are just what are actually used straight up in practice by people. It's just a thought. Totally a thought.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, a lot of the companies, like, I mean, you mentioned some of the big ones. I don't know if it would be simple to say this is what Microsoft uses, because, I mean, they'll have, I don't know how many community manager types they have, but it'll be very difficult to come up with like a set of like 20 that they use as a company. Because if they have like 30 community managers, like they might be all looking at different things.
That's
So-
I mean, that's going to be a couple of year process.
Yeah.
Right? Once they decide to implement something like this, if they do, right? And right now they're using stuff like GH Crawler and GH Insights, which have been just sitting there for like years. I don't think the Insights BI side of things for them has been updated in 3 years. But anyway, sorry, that's an aside.
Yeah, it was just totally a thought on how.
No, I know what you're getting at, but I think it'll be a pretty challenging thing to do. And then, I mean, this is something I've been telling people. I mean, even for me, like depending on where your community is, like what I look at this year is probably very different from what I looked at like a year and a half ago.
Gotcha.
Right. So it really depends on where your community is and what type of community you have. And it's like, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people here got those questions from their management. What are the 5 things that I should be looking at? And that's usually not a right question to ask, right? But really depends on the context and where you are.
This just seems like such a fast moving target.
Yeah, I mean, I wish there were like 5 things I can just focus on, but you know, it doesn't, that doesn't work, right? If yeah.
Yeah. Okay. No, I totally hear you.
Yeah.
Like it's one thing to, I think, create a metric to track, say, pull request time to close or pull request time to merge. Like that doesn't seem like such a fast moving target, but But something like, what are the 5 metrics that I should be using? It just seems so fast and so fluid.
Yeah, and yeah, it'll depend on your like execs even, because it might depend on like a different areas that want to focus depending on your business, right? So.
All right. Well, this issue gives me a headache.
So at some point, I want to talk about Jenkins and the evolution workgroup repo. We don't have to do it right now.
No, we can drop this conversation. I just wanted to put this out here.
Yep.
Get these things in practice. Okay, go ahead, Georg.
I'm just referencing Valerio's issue 225 on the evolution workgroup repository, and I don't fully understand what the goal of this is. Valerio, since you're here, maybe you can bring some more information.
Can you put this in the chat, or did you put it in the document?
I had put it in the chat.
Many long time ago.
Minutes ago.
Before the conversation evolved.
A grand total of 3 minutes ago, but there were a bunch of posts. I got it.
And John and I were having a private conversation, I think. But y'all can witness it.
Valerio, are you?
Yes. So the reason of the request is because Jesus, in the last meeting with Aniruddha, that is the student from Google Summer of Code, asked to include continuous integration to test the work that they are doing on Google Summer of Code project. So meaning that they want to test that the metrics derived with Perceval always work if they change something. So if you check in the project, in the repo, there is the folder implementation, and then there is another folder called codedf. So basically, I restructured a bit that folder to enable continuous integration. So as soon as there is a commit on that part of the project, so you have test that checks that the code is working. Does it answer your question?
So I'm not a maintainer of the working group. Maybe Sean, do you have questions about this?
So, I mean, I don't really see much detail. So proposal to add Travis CI feature to reference implementations.
So do you want me to extend?
I know what Travis CI is. So you're talking about like continuous integration around a reference implementation?
Yeah, I mean, this was something that was discussed in the meeting between Aniruddha, Jesus. I was there since I'm one of the mentors. So the idea was, yes.
I mean, if you see, I guess if the working group sees utility for it, I'm all for it. I mean, personally, I think the reference implementations aren't likely to change that much once they're at least
I mean,
hope they wouldn't, because otherwise because if the reference implementations changed after release, that would mean that something about the metric had likely changed, right?
Yes, or maybe they are going to add more metrics and they want to check also the new metrics. But I mean, I'm totally fine with your decision. I would just say that maybe Jesus and you can discuss as soon as Jesus is back from vacation.
I mean, if Jesus thinks it's a good idea, I'm not opposed to it. I'm trying to think, like, if that's effort, but I don't know the full context right now. So,
I mean, okay, I don't know the full context neither. In the sense is, I know that there is Aniruddha that is coding things in Python to implement the metrics with virtual. So there's some Python code, and Jesus proposed to add Travis support.
Maybe.
So, what?
Could this issue be brought up next Wednesday, the August 1st? I think is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, there is no rush to evaluate the PR. Actually, I mentioned I added Jesus as a reviewer. But I mean, you can review the PR and you can add your comments there. It's just that, I mean, the goal is simple. There is some Python code. So Anirudh wrote some tests, and then the next step was to have this test continuously running when new commits are added to this part of the code. So I mean, probably Jesus can better explain the rationale behind this decision, because I mean, I was just asked to implement, to give support to this part of the code.
All right. Yeah, the pull request explains it better than the issue.
I mean, if you want, I can add more details on the pull request, so explaining all the modification made on the files.
No, I would just reference the pull request in this issue, because I think that Georg shared a link to the issue, not the pull request. So I think link the pull request to the issue and refer people to that, because it's pretty clear what's happening. But yeah, I think I agree with Matt. We should take this up in the evolution working group meeting.
Okay, so you mentioned there is a pull request. Oh, okay, I see. The issue number 225. This one.
Yep. Looks like the pull request is 226, and
it is
an issue that was what Georg posted. And like, put a link to this pull request on that issue, and it'll make it a little easier to figure it out.
Okay, so you are going to link it, or I'm going to do it?
You can do it.
Okay, I'm going to do it. Okay.
Okay. The reason why I brought it up in the call today is because I'm not an evolution working group. I'm not keeping up, so I was not quite sure how this is negotiated within the working group and talked about. So thank you for discussing it, and I assume the working group will take it further on August 1st.
Yeah, and I will say right now, as I was running through, if we're on the evolution working group and reference implementations, as it stands right now, a lot of the evolution metrics don't have a reference implementation. There was a marker in there that this was going to be done. It's not important, or it's not critical that it be filled out in the metric prior to release. But I'm just pinging evolution working group people that there was a placeholder in the reference implementation header in the metric, and then below that it said work, to be done soon or whatever, work to be done, and it was never done up until yesterday. So I just removed that to be done part, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Okay. Like I said earlier, I was just trying to go through the metrics and clean up like random text and funny text, all those kind of things. it's not critical that it get done, but I removed that. So. Okay. Gaylor, do you have anything else on that, or is that good?
No, just adding Jenkins to a working group is something new and innovative. So I look forward to what comes out of it.
Okay. All right, cool. Anything else from folks? We're approaching the top of the hour. So it's very productive to talk with everybody.
Yeah, I actually just sent you a quick sidebar. I don't know if we need to talk about it publicly, maybe not. But I'll just put it out there. It might be a good idea. I did not realize until this week that all of these videos were recorded and posted out on YouTube.
Yeah, we do start every meeting by saying, but if you join late.
I'm famous. No, actually I was famous before y'all. No, it might just be worth putting something wherever we mention meetings. It's just like, hey, we record and release these publicly, and by joining the call, you get permission to do so.
That's completely fair. I can do that.
All good. I was just like, just from a risk management standpoint, I used to have to run around and get releases from people who sign crap.
Yeah, we've stated it pretty openly before, but maybe not as regularly as we should, if that makes sense. So I think
minor sidebar.
Yeah, well, and as new people are joining that kind of missed that first early declaration that we will be recording things. I think that's a point. Okay, cool.
Anyway, minor.
All right, cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, till next time, everybody.
Cool. Thanks, everyone.
Talk to you later. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Thank you.